All right. It looks like we have people online and watching us. I don't know if you can see the little participant number clicking up on the bottom of your screen. So wave to your fans. There we go. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for coming. I just want to say I'm Jenny Chamberlain. I teach storytelling in the digital age. And this is a theory meets practice course that considers stories as fundamental to how we create meaning and socially construct cultural understanding. So first, I just want to thank everyone for coming and these lovely students and all of their thoughtful work, and Jess Smith for helping them learn Twine and Adobe Premiere, and Peter Ciardelli for coordinating this webinar. And I want to explain a little about the perspective this course takes. And that is that the craft that storytellers use continues to evolve. And it evolves within a technological and cultural context. And we ask the question, how can we as storytellers use different means of engagement to deepen the impact of our stories and create more meaningful experiences? So while we're puzzling out like how stories work and what makes stories so effective, what captures imaginations and makes people feel transported or engage with other people's struggles or part of a community, we're also working on the art of storytelling. So in this class, in addition to critical thinking, students engaged in critical making. They crafted stories and then they played with them. They added interactivity, they added sound and visuals, and they were exploring and experimenting with how all of these layers of engagement transform the experience and ultimately the meaning that people create from their stories. So we studied the interplay of content and form. And in these projects tonight, the students were tasked with a really specific task, and that was conceptualize an innovative experience that's authentic to their story world and expands how people can engage with their story. Each presentation is just a couple minutes, and then we'll have about a minute for questions as we transition to the next speaker. And first up, we have Lauren King presenting a concept for No Big Dill. And Lauren, you should be able to share your screen.
All right, so welcome to No Big Dill. So this is my story, and this is my my new revolutionary concept that I've created. And as you can see, it has a little bit of a twist to it. It's called Talking Dill. So this is just a really messy room, right? Pretty like random. What is that? I just want you guys to first start off by meeting Dill. So this is Dill. He's just a run-of-the-mill, average 28-year-old underachiever from the UK. You know, he has lofty dreams of becoming a rapper, but he has no talent, no worth ethic to show for it. It's a little green, right? Did I mention that he's actually a pickle? Yes, Dill is an anthropomorphic pickle living in a human world. Yep. So basically, Dill has long outstayed his welcome in his childhood home. He's living with his parents and his kid brother after almost a year of being unemployed, mooching off his dad, and delivering empty promises of being the UK's next big rap star. He gets the boot. His dad says no more, and he's kicked out the house. Thus begins the show, No Big Dill, the animated series that follows Dill as he overcomes the odds of becoming the world's first pickle rap star. And as you can see here, this is some of the excerpts taken from the story about Dill, and you will see in the pilot episode. However, it's basically just an amalgamation of all of Dill's insecurities and negative comments that he's gotten from others because of being a pickle or not being talented, and also just being an overall underachiever. So next up, we have the Talking Dill segment. So Talking Dill will be the revolutionary concept that I'm adding to the show No Big Dill. It will be an after show companion piece to the animated series. And here we will see Dill animated still, but on a real physical set. and he will be shown using real-time animation, and it will basically just be Dill hosting the show. And there will be segments and different segments to the story that will further show pieces and elements that we've never seen before. So the theme for No Big Dill, this is really interesting because, for Talking Dill. Talking Dill takes place after every episode of No Big Dill, every new episode. And as a result, it kind of follows a theme of the entire series episode. And so as a result, that means that Dill will be using the material from the series to further explore on Talking Dill. He will be not only seen in the studio set, but he might also be in different locations, such as in England at home. He might be in the studio recording, making soundtracks, and he might even be backstage at the concert that he's performing at and want to do Talking Dill there as well. And each show centers on the previous episode that like I said before, and shares that theme. And we'll see Dill around in each location. And so we have different technology platforms that we're using to show this story. So mainly what we're using here, the kind of mainstream platform would be Instagram Live. And doing this would allow eager fans to not only partake and see the show, but interact with it in real time, meaning they'll be able to comment and send different emojis to show their reactions to events, but they will also be able to do a dual screening, meaning they will also be able to be on the live with Dill. And that will be something that is selected and done as a pre-screening, because we know the internet can be crazy and there are crazy people on the show. And because this is a real after show, it will be it will behoove the production team to do that. But another really interesting platform that we'll be using is VR technology, which will allow people with the VR headset. Hopefully, we're planning on partnering with a company like Oculus, since Facebook, Instagram, Oculus are all in the same family. They will be able to interact with the actual set or the location of that episode of Talking Dill, meaning that not only will they be able to kind of immerse themselves into the after show, but they will be able to interact with set objects and perhaps even pick up items, and that might be clues into or Easter eggs into the next episode of No Big Dill. And through that, there will be different segments, and the audience would be able to choose the segments and interact and just have a blast using the platforms and watching the show. So with that, I would like to just thank you guys for tuning in. And Dill says cheers. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren King. Do we have any questions from the audience as Katie Shee gets ready to present the last hour? So everyone understands. So Lauren's original concept, and for which he wrote the pilot and then wrote an interactive story and then a mood and tone piece with visuals, was about a talking pickle who is trying to make it as a rap star, despite a lot of obstacles. And this is the accompanying talk show piece that will stream live. And Katie, you should be on and ready to share your screen.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, so this is my final concept pitch. It's a cinematic VR timeline for my story, The Last Hour. And so I just wanted to quickly go over the story premise. So the premise of my initial story was a chance meeting of two people and how the relationship develops even within a brief period of time. So The Last Hour takes place in Hong Kong in 1979, when the city is at the cusp of political, economic, and cultural change. The 1970s sees a mass influx of people migrating to Hong Kong from mainland China, and our main character, Toby, is one of them. As a boxer, he frequents this community center in the inner city for his training sessions, When the demolition of the building is announced, he meets and speaks to Vincent, a musician who also frequents the place for the first time, and their conversation takes place for a single hour. In the midst of this chaos of both their lives and of the city, there's this moment of fleeting but meaningful human connection. And so the concept that I propose is a virtual reality experience presenting a timeline of the story world of The Last Hour. So every experience starts with Hong Kong in 1979 for both Vincent's and Toby's versions. Viewers can choose between Toby and Vincent's point of view prior to starting this virtual reality experience to pick which timeline you want to spend time in. After that, you can pick other points on the story's timeline and explore the setting of every point you choose, watching the story unfold as if you're a background character. And as you choose these plot points on the timeline and make choices for the character, either Toby or Vincent, these choices that you make during the experience unlock subsequent plot points, which generates different narrative possibilities. And so here you can see Toby's timeline and Vincent's timeline sort of sketched out. And the bold in Hong Kong is just where they met at the initial story, and also where you would start in this virtual experience. And just to go over the characters, so Toby is fan casted on the left and Vincent on the right. So Toby is someone who's always been good at blending in and not attracting the wrong kind of attention. He's a skilled martial artist, especially in wushu, but after he comes to Hong Kong, he learns boxing instead because that's what's allowed. He's always wanted to live in Hong Kong for a variety of reasons, which the audience can determine through this VR experience. Vincent, on the other hand, is born and raised in Hong Kong and was especially rebellious growing up. He chose to pursue music instead of taking a government post after finishing his education. And so now he's a cellist and a political activist in favor of Hong Kong's future independence. And so, as you can see, these are a couple of examples of timeline points you can choose. So after you explore the original Hong Kong setting in 1979, you can go back and explore either of their childhoods, the future, if you choose Toby to go either staying in Hong Kong after the demolition of that community center or leaving the city for other places. If you choose points on the timeline that aren't directly related to Toby and Vincent, you could unlock stories of other characters who exist in the same world and either have interacted with Toby and Vincent briefly, as in they pass each other in the street, or they use the same center at some point. It really is like a dream where like everything you see in a dream is like what you've seen before in real life. It's sort of that same concept here. And the technology used for this experience is really for any VR headset, which you would use while walking in place in the room. And every point in the chosen timeline corresponds to a cinematic experience that's both digitally and like filmed with audio for the soundscape of the setting and voiceover narration in both Mandarin and Cantonese, because language is a really big part of identity, both on the individual and on the city level. So Toby speaks both Mandarin and Cantonese, and Vincent speaks Cantonese. And so having that voiceover narration from the voice actors is really important. And of course, there'd be English subtitles, so you'd understand. And all of these elements combine to make a fully immersive experience for the story. My hope is that you'll be able to walk through these places at every point to explore. Here's that as well. You can walk up this hill, you can explore these buildings, you can stop by the street market. And then music is also a really big influence for this experience, not only because Vincent is a musician and he plays a number of these pieces, but also because it really evokes the tone and the attitudes of that I want to have in this experience and are reflective of the time. So you can see traditional erhu music here, which really calls back to like the traditional Chinese music. Fei Wang and Teresa Tang are also known not only for being really big pop stars, but also for the political activism that they aroused. in their music. So this VR experience, I hope, will aim to evoke the bittersweetness of human connection and parting, the uncertainties of individual and societal change, nostalgia for the past, and hope for the future. Thanks.
Thank you, Katie Shee. Does anybody have questions for Katie Shee as Christian Beck gets set up for As Dusk Turned to Night? I don't see any questions in the chat. Thank you very much for that experience. And Christian, you should be all set to share your screen.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you to Katie and Lauren for their presentations as well. So my name and my story is As Dusk Turns to Night. And this is a sort of like a virtual reality movie concept pitch that is the next evolution of this story. So just for a brief story synopsis of what As Dusk Turns to Night is. So my main character, Bo Knox, he's an 18-year-old football star at Shelbyville High. And in his town, he's sort of like a local celebrity, not only with his peers, but in the town. And he really relishes the praise that he receives. And from a young age, Bo has always been a protector figure for his little sister because their father was sort of like they experienced an abusive childhood from their alcoholic father, Kane. And this abuse has a lasting effect on Bo. It not only drives him to be like a protector figure for his sister, but also it sort of drives him to seek validation through achievement and self-reliance, which, as you see as the story progresses, ultimately drives him to become more inward in his thoughts and his motivation. And so the whole story is sort of taking place through this solo bow hunting trip in the Kentucky woods. And Bo is alone and he's seriously wounded, and he's sort of forced to confront a lot of these personal battles that he's been struggling with throughout the story and kind of faced with his own mortality. And so the major story elements for my virtual reality movie. So the story starts at Shelbyville High on the day before the weekend. And here we get to sort of experience some of Bo's friends, how he interacts with his peers, which is a big part of his character development. And then once the bell rings, he sort of has more interactions on the way out of the school, and then he drives to the hunting grounds. And throughout the story as well, Bo experiences a variety of flashbacks, which you'll see later in the presentation. And these flashbacks not only help add context to his family past, but also sort of his relationship with his sister, as this is a really important part of Bo's development as a character. As I talked about, he's sort of like the protector figure of his sister. And as the story progresses, his thoughts and the way that he thinks really shifts more inward from this protector figure. And he sort of becomes more driven by his ego and his desire to sort of gain achievements and seek validation through his peers. And then Eden, his sister, is sort of like sassy, brilliant sidekick. She goes to the same school as him, and she helps take care of their mother, who is in shambles after the years of abuse. And she tries to warn Bo about his recklessness before the hunting trip. As far as world description goes, you can see the two photos that I've shown above are actually drone photos that I've taken in an area very close to Shelbyville. And so I hope this kind of gives you a sense of not only the natural landscape, but also the sort of back roads, small city landscape that I was going for in this world. And then below, I have a picture of what I visioned for Shelbyville High. And then also on the lower right is sort of what I imagined the public hunting grounds that Bo would be hunting at in this story would look like. And so for my virtual reality movie concept, I was hoping to turn my film into a virtual reality film where the audience can wear VR goggles and the film would play through a set timeline. But as the movie progresses, they can sort of look around through the environment. And if, for example, say two characters like Bo and his younger sister are having a conversation, they can turn and watch that conversation, but also examine the environment and gain more context about the story and about the characters. And so the interactivity in the story is really derived from the virtual reality. It's derived from the viewer's ability to investigate the environment and fully immerse into the story using VR. And unlike some of the other concept pitches, my story would play through a fixed timeline, but the viewer would be able to interact with the story with these information buttons. So essentially, I'll explain more of this later on in the presentation, but you can click on these buttons and get more context on important key aspects of the story that sort of add more depth and necessary plot points as you go along. And also, just so that it's not jarring for the viewer, they will have the option to choose when they want to progress to the next scene. So say if they, once the conversation between two characters is over for that scene, they could still stay in that environment and examine, and then choose when they want to move on to the next moment. And technology that I would plan on using for this, platforms, I think Netflix VR, Samsung VR have been two of the biggest platforms for this kind of, these kinds of films. And then also as far as like VR goggles setup, I think something like the Oculus Quest 2 or the Sony PlayStation VR would be good options. And for those who have gaming capabilities, I was hoping that they would be able to move around in the environment as well. And additionally, one thing that sort of has come up is I would like to make my film accessible to just cellular devices as well. And so that if you don't have access to the virtual goggles, you could still experience the virtual component of this film, which is really one of the most critical aspects. But it wouldn't be like you're putting on the goggles. You'd just be able to move your phone around and sort of take in the entire setting without the goggles. And so that's something that I would hope to include as well in this pitch. And then here I just kind of have like some examples of what the audience experience would be like. So in the first picture, you can see that like this would be the opening scene where we kind of see Bo running in the morning before school. And when you're wearing the goggles, you're sort of like tracking behind him, and you can turn around and examine like from an aerial view, sort of like the whole city. And then before that scene progresses, you would click the follow Bo link, and then that would take you into the next scene. And then also an example of a flashback that would happen in the story is included below. And this would be like sort of like one of those more abusive flashbacks that gives context to Bo's background and some of his motivations. And so while this flashback is happening, you can look around his childhood home. And I think it really creates interactivity and immersiveness when you're sort of in these like pretty visceral encounters between like the dad and the son. I think that's what really helps the virtual reality create the immersiveness. And then also I have some more examples of what the audience experience would look like. So for example, you'd be following Bo similar to the running shot that I showed you guys as he's walking down the trail on the public hunting grounds. And then to continue into the next scene, you would click the forward trail button. And then also one key aspect of the environment that's become really important is sort of like the idea of the nature and this redeeming aspect of nature that it has in the story. And so I really want to make all the natural scenes like really immersive. And so I've included this drone shot that I took of the woods back home. But I think like the use of 3D audio to sort of include those natural sounds would help make this aspect of the story kind of highlight its importance. And then also one thing that I was planning on including in the story is interactive buttons as well. And so as the story progresses, you'd be able to click on one of these buttons and a text box would pop up and give you more context. So for example, you could click on the button of Bo's father, and it would give you more context on who he is and sort of the background, which would, I think, help with the motivation of the characters. And that would also be something that would add interactivity to the story. So that's it. Thank you guys for listening. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. I don't see any questions in the chat, so we should queue up Jordan Fitch with Life Sucks. If you're ready to share your screen.
Yeah, I can go. First and foremost, as everyone in my class knows, literally no one's allowed to judge me from my desktop. Please and thank you. Let's go here. Hello, everyone. My name is Jordan, and the story world that I'm going to be presenting to you today, it's a little bit more expansive, I think, than some of my other peers, and the reason is because I'm actually taking this class in conjunction with my senior thesis. So this story world that I'm presenting to you today is actually my senior thesis. It's I've been writing 12 episodes of a season of an original animated series. So I'm not going to go too deeply into like the episodes and like what it's about. I'll give you kind of a vague
overview, and then I really kind of want to focus more on the themes that are running through this and kind of my major impetus behind creating the show and how that project has really evolved after being in this course. Okay, so this is kind of like the basic, my log line, life sucks and then you die, except sometimes you don't. Basically, Life Sucks is a story that follows 3 queer people of color just trying to survive college and life itself, finding power and love in their chosen family. One of the characters just happens to be like a half human, half succubus, like sex demon that feeds on the sexual energy of men. Really casual. It's only part of it, like I promise. But more, there's a lot going on. If you want to check out this website, I don't recommend it. It's not fully fleshed out, but to focus a little bit more on themes, these are kind of like what I'm thinking about when I'm writing this. Really, one of the things that was really important to me when sitting down and deciding to create this show is I think it's so important to have shows about queer people that isn't about like queer trauma and queer pain. You know, this isn't about their coming out. This isn't about them like chasing some sort of acceptance. They're very solid, you know, in who they are. This is just about them and their lives and like how they get through the normal basic like shit show of existence, you know. Secondly, I think my show really works towards normalizing a lot of concepts and identities that I think are usually very marginalized or even vilified, and whose communities tend to experience a lot of harm. And I think that normalizing these things and making them, I think, accessible to a lot of people is maybe like one of the first steps in harm reduction. So that's kind of something that I'm thinking about a lot and I'm trying to do. And one of the ways I do that is really by pushing boundaries in my writing. I try and be surprising and jarring, but always really coming from a place of honesty and authenticity. And then lastly, in the wake of this class, I've been kind of like been able to expand my ideas conceptually, my ideas of media and transmedia and what that means and how to kind of blend multiple storytelling inputs together to create like really visceral and impactful experiences. So, and that has also worked really well in conversation with like a lot of the queer theory that I've been studying like in my time at Dartmouth, particularly right now in a course I'm taking, which has been really cool. And a concept that has been really important to me is this idea of queer world building. And like, not to get too pedantic on the Zoom, not gonna get too into it, but basically it's like exactly what it sounds like. It's building queer worlds where queer people can exist. It's like carving out space, you know, where queer people can live without the like crushing weight of heteronormativity and white supremacy and patriarchal control. All that kind of fun stuff just gets pushed to the side as we're like imagining how to build worlds where we can exist without harm, you know? So these are all the things I'm doing. And after taking this class, I kind of wanted to utilize this like transmedia method we've been talking about to really expand and take these values that I'm trying to put into my work and kind of expand it out of just my fictional world, you know, make it praxis, you know, if you will. And the way that I've decided to do that is really in kind of like the method of not production, I guess production, how I'm putting it out into the world. So my biggest idea is to make this show a show that streams live on Twitch. For those of you who don't know, Twitch is a platform originally created for gamers to be able to live stream them gaming. And one of the biggest things about Twitch is it's live and it also is very like community based. Like there's a chat box that's going whenever there's content watching. So anyone who's like watching a show, like let's say it airs live every Friday, right? Everyone comes to the Twitch every Friday and you can, you know, type in the chat box. It kind of eliminates that need, you know, you don't have to like go on Twitter and live tweet it. You can like live react with other people watching it. You can talk about the show, about anything but the show. I don't really care. My idea and what I want to do is create a place where people can come together and find community and find hopefully, you know, like-minded individuals in this space. And then second to that, Twitch also just is an incredible platform that opens up so many possibilities when it comes to like interactivity, as in like I have an interactive episode one of my episodes, my characters play a game of D&D, and so I'm writing an episode where like you could play D&D like as the characters, and it's like if you've ever seen the like Bandersnatch, you know, or like the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt like interactive TV episodes, it's kind of like that, and the Twitch platform can allow me to do fun things like that as well. The second big kind of part to that is, in addition to Twitch kind of goes hand in hand with this thing called Discord. And for those of you who don't know, Discord is essentially like Slack for gamers. Basically, it's just it's like a virtual gathering space. Oh yeah, I have that there. It's like a virtual gathering space. So there would be a Life Sucks Discord where any audience member, any fan, anyone who sees the show can go and they can join this Discord. And so they're immediately connected with a community of people who also like the show. And we would be constantly doing things to kind of encourage this sense of participatory culture, which is something that I really like and I think is awesome. And so that's something that I really want to do. We'd have like these are just examples of like text channels that we could have, like Fanfic Fridays, where like every Friday we'd get in the Discord and like do dramatic readings of fan fictions that people write about the show. Or like textual relations was like an idea I had of doing like a book club, right? And it doesn't necessarily, like all of these things, like there's many, you know, avenues you can go. This is all just a starting point, and obviously it would just be, you know, wherever the community kind of wants to take it. The book club could be an opportunity to expand not just about the show, but like have people get on there and talk about books about, you know, recommended readings, how to be anti-racist, how to be an ally, things like that. You know, it's really limitless what you can do. One of my biggest examples or like ideas that I had would be things like game nights, which I think would be really, really fun. Something that I already do with a lot of my friends. If you guys have ever heard of these things called Jackbox games, like these are just some examples, me and my friends playing Jackbox. But Jackbox is really, really cool because it allows people from all over the world to play like one game together. Which is fun. So there can be tons of audience participation. We can all get in the Jackbox and play games. And like this game that I have right here is like, it's called TKO. Basically you make t-shirts. It's like a t-shirt designing contest. And we could do things like the winning design for like a TKO round could end up like in the wardrobe of a character for next season, right? Like the tangible ways for the audience to actually engage in the show and doing things. And then you can, you know, it's kind of limitless. You can make merch from those from the t-shirts and use the proceeds from that merch to go towards like mutual aid funds or like whatever GoFundMe, you know, is like going around in the community. Whoever needs help, we can like allot those funds. So those are kind of just the things I'm thinking of and the different ways that I would want to kind of expand this idea of community and these queer worlds that I'm doing in my work to like make it real and make the show, I don't know, just as impactful as I possibly can. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jordan. We're going to circle back to Sarag, and I am going to share my screen so that Sarag can present. Let me know if you guys see it.
Yeah. So can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Professor Chamberlain, for being my presenter. And before I begin, fair warning, it's 1:30 a.m. for me right now. And to be honest with you, I'm already half asleep. So if I say anything that doesn't make sense, just go with it. All right, so An Endless Dream. It's a story. So on the first slide here, you'll see the synopsis. It's a story about a little girl who falls asleep and finds herself stuck in a nightmare. So she starts wandering around and she finds a monster who tries to do his job and scare her awake, but he can't because the girl doesn't find him scary. She actually thinks he's kind of adorable and keeps laughing at him. So the story is about this unlikely pair of characters becoming slowly attached and the monster trying to find a way to wake this girl up. So the characters here, like I said, you have the girl who is basically like a little ball of energy and happiness who doesn't really care that she's stuck in this nightmare world. And she's the only human character in the world. And then you have the monster who's the complete opposite. He used to be a human, but then like the girl who was also stuck in this nightmare world. and he went out to explore, and he was ambushed by a witch, which then turned him into this monster. So the story is about this monster revealing his kindness, basically, and taking care of this girl and trying to wake her up so she doesn't face the same fate as him. All right, so my idea is for a storybook, specifically a choose your own adventure storybook. And basically the idea is that it would be a VR storybook, which I realize sounds weird. You don't buy a VR headset to read, but bear with me. So in this next slide, you'll see the idea is you put on the VR headset and then you find yourself in a cabin in the woods. And you can look around, you can enjoy the atmosphere of the cabin as much as you want. When you're ready, you'll find a table with a storybook on it titled An Endless Dream. So you can open it up and read it like you would any normal book, which I realize sounds like a thrilling VR experience, but it gets better in this slide. You can choose to have the monster narrate the whole experience while you're reading it. You can also have sound effects. You can have music, which helps set the tone for the scenes. The idea is basically that if you close your eyes, you're there in the nightmare world and the monster is telling his story. Which again, I realize kind of negates the whole point of putting on a VR headset if you close your eyes. So I address that on this slide, in which you have some pages will have illustrations that you can interact with. And when you do that, you'll be transported into this scene. And then you can look around, you can see the scene play out, you can see the monster and the girl interact. You can also walk around and interact with any item you find. You can even bring it to the monster and he'll comment on it and tell you what he thinks. And this is just to make the player feel like they're more of a participant in this journey. And actually not a participant, because you see in this slide, that you're actually more of an advisor to the monster, because sometimes in these VR scenes, you'll be presented with choices which impact the outcome of the game, and changes the endings, changes the scenes, changes the dialogue options. This basically is just where the choose your own adventure thing comes in. This encourages replayability, and also makes the player aware of the choices they're making. So they have to be careful if they want the girl and the monster to come out alive. They can also be, sadist and lead them to their deaths. Choices there. And you see on this final slide, this experience would be compatible with all major VR headsets like the Oculus Rift, Quest, or the HTC Vive. This is just to make it accessible, no matter how rich you are. So that's my story. Thank you, Professor Chamberlain, for presenting and for this class. I had a wonderful time. And thank you everyone for listening to my presentation.
Thank you, Sarag. Next up, we have Callie Adair. Are you prepared to share your screen? Callie Adair Holmes presenting 72 Degrees.
All right, excellent. So hello, everyone. I'm Kaylee Adair Holmes, and today I'm going to be presenting a little bit about 72 Degrees, a story I wrote throughout this term, only I wanted to see how I can re-envision it, specifically in an immersive VR experience. So the first kind of idea or question that I really wanted to explore is how can we create memories in a digital space that feel realistic, that are realistic to how we see and feel them in our minds? And this question got me thinking about how to create an overall immersive VR experience in the story world of a character named Jimmy. So in this VR version, you play as Jimmy, moving throughout this dream state, which is a world that is very much like reality. The goal of the game is to move through Jimmy's world within a certain time limit to gather as many memories as you can. These memories have certain positive and negative points attached, and that ultimately determines whether or not Jimmy wakes up from this dream state. The outcome is dependent on the player's choices throughout the world and the memories that ultimately are triggered within those choices given a certain time frame. So the overall mood and tone is this idea of the in-between, the 72 degrees, and that's between the unconscious and the conscious. Some other words I associated are dark, disassociation, reflective, and psychological. And in the story world, it's welcome to the rest. So we're expanding Jimmy's world to begin with. It's not a limited set of experiences like in the previous story. The player agency is you're able to move throughout Jimmy's world, kind of similar to GTA, but only in a VR version. The incentive is to go and explore and find all the memories as much as you can, and not one play is going to be the same since you're able to move freely. Since it is a reality-based world, there are familiars, but also unfamiliars. Since it takes place on the reservation, the unfamiliars are a rural desert, very cultural specific language and norms that are cultural specific to the area, native culture, for example, foods, and even car culture. So the basic premise is you are Jimmy. That is your character in the full VR set. You were just released from prison, 10-year sentence, live on a reservation in northern Arizona, and the goal is to ultimately wake up. You move around Jimmy's world unlocking memories, both positive and negative, within a certain time frame. You do this by having interaction with characters and spaces to unlock those memories and learning about your character. And ultimately, in order to wake up, your memory score must exceed over 0. This is just one example of VR in To the City, where you would be walking around in this kind of desert rural area. So let's talk about player agency. While the player does get to choose, navigate through the world, you get to go to different places, the randomness of memories is not necessarily up to the player. This is because certain places, spaces, things trigger certain memories automatically. These memories have different points associated with them. Negative memories, bad memories, things that we don't really want to remember are take away from your total. You start with a disassociation total, which is at the beginning 0. Negative memories take away, positive memories add. And at the end of a certain time limit, your disassociation total, which is shown at the bottom here, will determine whether or not Jimmy will wake up. So memory scoring kind of goes like this. It's separated between 2 high scoring memories, which are higher emotional value memories, either positive or negative, large impact memories in specific character development, such as important childhood memories, or transitional memories into new parts of life. And then you have low scoring memories, which are smaller things that make an impact. They still have positive or negative values attached. And then just to keep the game moving, we have neutral memories, which are there for plot, character development, and as I mentioned, to keep the game going. One example of a high scoring positive memory would be the birth of his child, or an example of a low scoring positive memory is perhaps a birthday when he was young during his childhood. An example of a high scoring negative memory would be maybe a prison experience. And then an example of a low scoring negative memory would be something small, like a wasp sting that he just really remembers. And so it's important, since you move throughout this world, that you have different triggers. You have music sounds, such as possibly a muffler starting from a 1970s Nova, saying and voices, such as different characters as you interact, images and pictures, objects, large and small, people and places. So all of these different kind of things that force you to interact with the world, but also in the mind of Jimmy. And then most importantly, how are these memories visualized? These vivid memories are important, or new memories, you know that they're important because they have clean, linear POV. Old memories are less detailed, still POV of course, but with visual imperfections such as blurry, fading in and out, and possibly not linear, such as snippets of time that are pieced together to create, what it would reflect as you were trying to remember something. And then of course, visual tonality to each memory that portrays a certain emotion and feeling, good versus bad, to demonstrate if it's a good memory or a bad memory. Some examples are anxiety inducing, or they're relaxed or soothing. And then also to make this VR immersive experience really, truly immersive, we have 3D sound. I really wanted to pay attention to things like ambiance. That way it really feels like you're having this kind of real moment that you're in reality, whether that's having a conversation with somebody and there's background noise, or you're paying attention to the small details within the sound, but that's ultimately critical to the immersion experience. And ultimately, in the end, it is dependent on your score. If you reach positive points, then you wake up. And if you reach negative points, you ultimately slip from this reality, the world crumbles, and you're unable to wake up. And you have to start the game again until you're able to find enough positive memories and points to wake up. And I really wanted to think about disassociation and ultimately what is reality and how can we create visual memories in the digital space. And that is my presentation. So thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Killia dear. Next up, we have Min Her with Guardian Angel.
Okay, so hi, I'm Min Her, and today I'm going to talk about Guardian Angel and an interactive game. So ideally, my animated short film, Guardian Angel, has been released, so you all know about it. But just for those who are not aware of it, I'll give you like a really quick explanation. So this is the slogan in the poster. It says, everyone has a soulmate, but have you ever wondered how that works? Are we just meant to be with somebody? So the original storyline goes like, in the world where each human is assigned a guardian angel, soulmate as humans prefer to, Maggie, an energetic angel, longs to become a guardian angel herself. After passing her angel test, she accidentally drops her assignment sheet, which immediately burns as it reaches the earth. Refusing to give up, Maggie decides to find her soulmate, relying solely on her instincts. She then finds a boy named Zach, with who she immediately feels a strong bond with. And while she is confident that he is her soulmate, her friend Alice tells her a story about a human feeling called love. Is Zach Maggie's soulmate? If not, will Maggie be able to find her soulmate? So I want to focus on the theme of meaning and value of friendship and how sometimes friendship and love can be very ambiguous. We can't really draw a line between the two. And the tone is optimistic and energetic because my target audience are children here, and the mood is humorous and cheerful, which is largely affected by the main character's personality, that is Maggie's. So there are three main characters in this film, and Maggie, like mentioned before, she's a brave, energetic guardian angel, and she's certain that Zach is her soulmate, but then she questions her feelings towards him. And Zach is Maggie's soulmate candidate, and spoiler alert, but they are soulmates after all. And he thinks of Maggie as a really good friend. And lastly, Alice is Maggie's angel friend, and she cares about and worries about Maggie all the time. So the interactive story game that I want to pitch today is in the same universe of Guardian Angel, an animated short film. And players become Guardian Angel themselves and go through a mission of finding their soulmate. The game features the main character of the movie, Maggie, as well as popular side characters like Natalie, Josh, and Matt, who are all Zach's high school friends. So there's 3 stages in this game. Firstly, you get your Guardian Angel personality assignment, and there are 16 types available. And second, you do the search for soulmate. It's 10 minutes per stage. There are 4 stages in total, and you get 5 hints. And lastly, you guess your soulmate. You have 3 chances. If you get it right, you win the game. If you don't, you have to try it all over again. So how does this character assignment thing work? I am using Myers-Briggs Foundation's 16 personality test to categorize people into this different personalities. So basically there are 8 alphabets and you get some kind of combination. For example, I myself is an ENFJ. So let's take a look at TNF, for example. It's just thinking and feeling. So when it comes to deciding something, if you rely more on your logic, if you're more of a thinker, then you would be a T. But if you're like me, relying more on impulses and feeling, you'd be an F. So with that combination, there are 16 possible. And just for reference, our main character, Maggie and Zach, the two soulmates, they are ENFP. So as you can see, they have matching MBTI. And Alice, on the other hand, she's an INFJ. So she has her own soulmate. So the soulmate pair works only when a player and the human, the NPC, has an identical MBTI, the 4 alphabets. And all 16 humans, the NPCs, are characters from the original movie Guardian Angel. So to become a guardian angel, you take a quick 5-minute personality test, and then you're provided with your MBTI, like myself, ENFJ, and now your goal is to find a soulmate who has the same MBTI. To find your match, there are 16 characters, 16 candidates, and one of them has a matching MBTI as yours. So you engage in a conversation with them to figure out their MBTI. So there are 4 stages, and each stage focuses on one aspect of MBTI. For example, the first stage would focus on determining if it's F or T. And the conversations will be very obvious, but just in case you need some help, you can use 5 hints in total, which will tell you the alphabet. So the game's message is surrounding the ambiguity of the idea of friendship, love, and soulmate. This was a conversation I had with my friend pretty often, like how can we draw the line? Is it just is this really love, or am I just confused because because of my sexual orientation? If this person has an opposite gender, I might immediately associate this feeling with love. So circling around this ambiguity, I want to focus on this game, which is accessible for children as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Min. And we're going to go around 10 minutes late. I hope everyone can stick with if you can. Next up, we have Fatima Kiata with Sienna.
Yes, let me share my screen. Okay, can everyone see it?
Yes.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Fatima, and this is my virtual reality game concept pitch. So the story that I originally wrote is Sienna. And in the background here, you see a Martian landscape, which represents the branch of my story that takes place on Mars. So the scenario, the premise is that you're a player in the game and you're given an intro into how the world is. It's now the future, it's 2088, and you're learning about this kind of hyper-capitalist world. You have the water wars, lots of conflicts around the scarcity of water, and also this system of trafficking and smuggling to Mars. So life everywhere is extremely difficult, except for the ultra wealthy. And then in this dystopia, you meet your player, Sienna, and you have to choose either Earth or Mars. So if you choose the Earth timeline, you get to experience a day in her life. So she's a sex worker, and she also has a younger sister that she cares for. You also see long lines for food and water and the danger of society, especially for women. But if you choose the Mars timeline, you have to try to obtain passage to Mars and make arrangements for your sister to be taken care of. And then you may or may not make it to Mars. So you're aware of this, and then you have to choose whether or not to take the risk. So this kind of virtual reality game was an outgrowth of our Twine projects. So here you see the timeline of what we made. On the right is the Earth storyline, the right is the Mars storyline. So you decide to, okay, hold on. The left is the Mars storyline. So you leave Earth, and then you have your journey to Mars. And then this kind of splits. So you may have a space accident and you may die, or you may get to experience your first day on Mars and see what life is like there. So you're also kind of in this smuggling kind of underbelly of trafficking in Mars. But then you find out the even dirtier truth that they're actually doing human water extraction. So basically they're kidnapping people, extracting water from their bodies, and then basically disposing of them. So after that, you can decide if you're gonna try to free people from this and probably end up there yourself, or you get to kind of run off into uncharted Martian territory. So on the other timeline, if you stay on Earth, things get more desperate, obviously. You may get lucky and survive, or you end up meeting a stranger who actually smuggles you to Mars. So you end up in Mars either way. And for the gameplay, you can jump back to individual sections if you get to a dead end, like a space accident. So yes, as I said before, a virtual reality game, very immersive, and you physically are going through these choices that I laid out for you in Twine. And then for my technology, I want to use different modes of virtual reality. So the idea is to be like in a Sienna themed space, like a large kind of gallery space. And you can use the VR goggles to be Sienna, but then that mode switches for everyone when you're making the journey to Mars. So I kind of envision it as a group kind of journey on a spaceship, and you can kind of have that community aspect of VR in kind of a open environment. And then after that, you can choose to switch back to the VR goggles, or you can explore other parts of the environment. And I also envisioned elements of live action role playing. So you would actually have actors in the space who would be Sienna's family or friends, or you can experience standing in food lines and water lines and really get immersed into either the Earth or Mars world. So you see two sides of the mood and tone of the game here. On the left side, you see the Earth side, which is very gritty, dirty. And I really wanted to capture like the desperation of the poverty, and you have elements of horror there. So it's a very dark and gritty tone on Earth, but then on Mars, you kind of have this fresher, sleek aesthetic, which is, you know, it symbolizes the fact that it's a second chance for your character. So I also want to have visuals and sounds like a lot of my other peers that surround you to help kind of immerse you in the different moods and tones. So whether you're doing like trying to emphasize how scarce water is with water sounds, space explosions in an accident, or trafficking and exploitation, that will definitely be essential. And so here's just a quick rundown of the characters. So Sienna is your heroine. You play as her for some time, but you also get to get out of her character and experience the world. And Etta, Sienna's little sister, who she protects, and you also see her friends. And then behind her behind the slide in this image, you kind of see this thing called the IPE, which is Interplanetary Enforcement, which enforces the laws for these Earth-Mars environments. And so a last thing that I was interested in is this idea of constructivism, which is players actually not using the game as you intended it. So after you make the choice to run to this uncharted part of Mars when you're running away from the water extraction, I want players to be able to have a more open world version of the game. So you get to decide, do you want to try to live with what you ran away with these little resources, maybe die a noble death, or I'll give you the option to maybe play as another character and see if you have a better outcome, maybe try to make it to another planet, or you can start over. So the goals are completely up to the player because survival is not what you're being pushed toward, and you get to make some decisions for yourself. Okay, that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Fatima. Next up, we have Charlie Palshow with The Lifeguard.
Thank you.
We're jumping all around in tone from project to project.
All right, so I'm pitching my story, The Lifeguard. I'm Charlie Palshow. Thanks for listening. So my story is about the mundane life of a young man. It's both sad and funny, and it's a slow descent into his miserable life and his journey to discovering self-respect. John is a likable lifeguard. He's hardworking and kind, but his problem is that he has no self-respect, so the people in his life walk all over him. The theme of my story is the importance of self-respect, and I hope to signal us with this quote that will flash after the title sequence. The form of my story greatly informs the theme, and this due to the inevitability of the ending, John gaining his self-respect, and the variability of his journey to get there, provided by its interactive structure. And another message of the film is self-reliance, that anyone can change their life at any time, and much of what defines us is what we choose in life. So my story, it's an interactive short film about depressed YMCA lifeguard John, who has fake badges of self-worth. And his boss and the members of the YMCA constantly disrespect him. His girlfriend treats him poorly. He's always about to break up with him. And he realizes the reality of his circumstances during a bad day at work. And though he has nothing else, he learns that what he does have is worse than nothing at all. And he chooses to give it all up and restart. So my story is going to have one common beginning 3 branching plots and 1 common ending. The idea is that the viewer will get to choose how much abuse John suffers before he inevitably must change because his abuse is too much to bear. All the storylines are both sad and funny, but some lean more so into the drama or abuse in the story, and some lean less into the dramatic abuse and more into the comedy, which is John freeing himself from this abuse that he once ridiculously tolerated. And comedies are shorter than tragedies, so the storyline that is funniest will be the shortest, and the interactivity will accelerate the plot, and vice versa. The most dramatic storyline will be the longest, and the middlemost will be a true dramedy, a combination of both. And the tone is modified by the choices of the viewer, and the choices will be starkly provided to the viewer. One will be clearly funny and one clearly dramatic option, so the reader has a sense of agency over how they're controlling John's story. So here's another picture of what John might look like, always wearing his lifeguard uniform because he's so dedicated, and his lifeguard whistle that becomes a recurring symbol. His boss, so there's 2 settings in the film, the pool and Chili's, and Kyle abuses John at work at the pool, and Jane abuses John after work at Chili's. And John's 60-year-old boss, pool director boss Kyle, doesn't take his job seriously and dislikes John's work ethic because he hates his own job. So he makes John do things around the pool all the time. Jane is getting drunk and ridiculing John at their dinners all the time, and he only stays with her because she only stays with him because he has no prospects, and vice versa. There are 5 scenes in my film. The film will open at Chili's with John, his girlfriend, and his boss, and some coworkers having some drinks after work, and the mood is established in the store world by all of his coworkers and his girlfriend and boss are kind of ridiculing him already, saying his job is being unimportant. He looks unhappy with his life right off the bat. So scene 2 is kind of an inciting moment in the plot. John is told to clean up a poop in the kiddie pool at the YMCA, and this is just a big inflammatory moment for him because he feels he's still the low man on the totem pole. He has all these aspirations. He feels like he's not being taken seriously at work. And then we get into John leaving his job. So John's either going to quit or be fired, and this is going to be the first choice offered to the reader. So if John quits, you see it's a more accelerated storyline. He has more self-respect initially than if he were to be fired. It's funnier. And if he were to be fired, it's a slower development. It's leaning into the tragedy of his story more so. And it's going to be taken through a slower dramatic storyline. Then we're going to return to Chili's, and it's going to be the moment where John has to decide if he's going to have some self-respect or not. And the first choice, number 2, offered to the viewer is going to be to break up with his girlfriend or stay with her. And if the viewer chooses to stay, that choice will be eliminated, and we're going to loop back to the only choice being to break up with the girlfriend, and because John needs to have his self-respect. It's an inevitable ending. And the last scene will be they're at Chili's. Jane classically is kind of ridiculing John, talking down to him, and then John has had enough. And I can see clearly now the rain is gone, starts to play. It's a really uplifting, inspiring moment. John seems happier. He's broken up with Jane, and he's walking out the restaurant. He hurls his whistle, which has become a symbol through the film, into the trash can, and he walks out to what's an uncertain future, but surely a better one because he's not in this toxic place in his life and relationships anymore. And thank you very much for listening. I just want to reiterate that I think my story offer a really unique concept in that we talk a lot about great stories that are genre defying, but I think mine is kind of genre changing or genre fluid because it offers an interactive element in which the viewer can change the genre somewhat.
Thank you, Charlie. And next up, we have Noble Ray with The Plate Runner.
Okay. Is it screen sharing now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So my name is Noble Rai, and I'm sharing today my pitch for The Plate Runner. I kind of called it a futuristic community interactive thriller. So to start off with, there are 2 rules in the runner's rulebook. 1, curiosity killed the runner, survival is ignorance, and 2, better never than late. So that was a little confusing to start off with. To get put into this world, but let's dive into it just a little bit more. So the world of my story is takes place in the futuristic city of New York, where one would think that the rapid advancement of technology would have ushered in utopia. Many citizens, for example, have biochips that augment their reality and enhance their vision. But instead of peace, the city is full of chaos, violence, and crime. Things are especially bad in the slums, known as the woods, where the youth often only have one option to escape their fate: to become a runner. Runners are couriers chosen by various gangs and crime syndicates that are tasked with delivering mysterious sealed red bags to some of New York's most elite citizens. The job is dangerous. Runners from different gangs get rewarded for taking out the competition, while black market grifters look to steal bags. Some say that drugs are inside these, others say cash, valuables, or sensitive documents. But it's a secret kept from even the runners as well. Looking inside the red bag or failing to deliver on time within a time limit can spell doom for a runner. On a mission fail or breach, retirement squads are sent immediately to dispose of them. There's no time to mourn when there are bags to run. So our story follows the character of Rome. So ever since Rome was a boy, all he's wanted to do is be a runner. Throughout his life, he's told himself things like runners have pride in what they do, they have a code that they follow to their deaths. And he thought about what it'd like to be proud of what he does, to have a purpose. And that runners are important, they have to be. Why else would they throw their lives on the line day after day? Now, after 15 years of the job, age 30, Rome is finally about to enter the last week of being a runner. And here are just some shots of things I think would be cool to enhance the story. Some of the major themes and tones, self-identity and purpose, are two major themes. In this world full of uncertainties and mysteries, Rome has built his whole entire identity around his burning passion to become a runner. What happens when someone reaches their dream? Looking back at his life and what he's done as a runner, was it really worth it? The overall tone is foreboding and melancholic. Rome reflects on his past, while the world around him seems as unforgiving as ever. Senseless violence is all too familiar. Now here is the concept for how the story will be displayed. I've called it the one last week. So Rome has 1 week left as a runner. Just 7 days stand between him and a life of peace. But as he reflects on his life, he thinks about what he wants to do. Does he want to retire in peace or risk it all for the truth? So the story takes place over 1 actual week, and it's a live broadcast that occurs every day for exactly an hour. In the live broadcast, an actor plays Rome, and we get a camera perspective of his point of view. The audience is presented with choices throughout this hour, choices on what decisions to make, what other characters to interact with, and what to expand and what to explore in a defined environment. Choices will impact the story, and they create a compelling continuous narrative where the consequences of a day's actions have repercussions for Rome's fate. And so this is just an example of some of the branching options. Some of the mechanics of this, Twitch, which is presented in Jordan's presentation before, is a platform for live streaming with a built-in chat for audience. So this gives a functionality for interactive polls to make decisions that can go down to as small as music choices. Additionally, there's an integration of AR, because in the story, a biochip gives Rome the ability to see augmented reality. AR technology, such as that is being developed by Agora.io, lets artists model their own augmented reality experiences, and these can actually map real-world objects and digital graphics in real time. And so directors and camera operators can use the software to alter the live video feed from the POV. Just an example of what that may look like. And just additionally with some goals really quickly, this whole narrative fits well with Rome's character. He's a conflicted person, and the audience really gets to delve into what choices define him. And also community-based decision-making can make for a unique shared experience that everyone can resonate with and make them feel part of the experience. And we've seen some sort of series like this in the past with Bandersnatch on Netflix, but none have really delved into the live aspect. And I'm excited to be able to take it into a multimedia experience that incorporates many different elements. Thank you.
Thank you, Noble. I just want to thank all of the students again for coming up here, not only thinking through your stories and how you can extend them and innovate around them to create a new experience, but also throughout the semester, just giving really good feedback to your peers and thinking really critically about what it is you want to do with your stories and how you get there. So bravo, it was a pleasure meeting you all and having you in the course. And if we have any questions from the chat, I'm sure our creators would be happy to answer them. We're just getting props. You guys are just getting mad props, and that's about it. Well, have a great night and good luck on the rest of your finals and projects. And everybody in a late time zone, get some sleep. Thank you, everyone. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. It was so
Yeah,
great.
thank you guys.